David was quite fair with his introduction. At every RISKGATE workshop I ever run, I introduce myself as being someone who has no mining background, no engineering background, no risk management background. But, as David said, I'm uniquely qualified to take the bugs out of the system. Okay, RISKGATE. So, you all know about SMI, but when I talk about RISKGATE in the different conferences that I present this program at, and it's quite a lot of them now, I always try and place MISC within the SMI and highlight the fact that MISC's real area of excellence is around risk and health, safety management in the minerals industry. And the fact that we sit within SMI, and there are probably opportunities, which I will get to towards the end of this talk, for taking the RISKGATE approach and working with some of our sister institutes, pending, of course, whether the industry is open to funding that kind of work. Mining in Australia globally has a stellar record. Unlike the US, which thinks that a success is losing 35 people in mining a year, and they're well on track to doing that again this year, if you look at the averages. Australia wants that number to be 0 in terms of fatalities and has worked very hard to get there. One of the main reasons for that is because in the late 90s, the way that hazards were treated in the industry changed from being prescriptive to being one based around risk management. And MISC, through Jim Joy and other people in MISC, have played a very instrumental part in training the industry in how to do that. Jim also played a very instrumental part in the conception and the initial sale, and it was more him who was kissing babies than me to make this project come to fruition at the beginning. Over the summer period, we had a number of students here doing analyses of incidents across a number of different countries, mostly under Jill's direction. And Jill took a look at fatalities in Australian coal mining over the last 2 decades. And you can see a very interesting change here in the number of fatalities, well, down from 65 to 19 in 10 years. But the change between the distribution of those fatalities across principal hazards and other hazards in the industry. So these big areas where the risk management practices have really taken over and created a much safer working environment, you see far fewer fatalities in the industry in the last decade in those areas. And where's my mouse gone? But one still has now a much larger lot of incidents around these non-principal hazards. And that's where this whole body of knowledge called RISKGATE is being built, not just around principal hazards, but also around these other non-principal hazards. We are right now, we don't have any data, but Shirley and one of my other research assistants are going through the last 10 years of American fatality data and classifying it according to these same hazards, and it's going to be very interesting to see the comparison of the two. Give us another 3 weeks and we should have that together. Which brings us to RISKGATE. The coal industry wants to make a step change in risk management by focusing on control effectiveness. And the way they want to do this is by moving into the use of bow tie analysis. The other thing which is happening in the industry is that the mining workforce is aging. It's transient, it's highly mobile. People are not tied to a particular employer. There's not a whole lot of loyalty, given the way that the industry manages their workforce in times of economic turmoil. And people move from job to job. And when people move, knowledge moves. I sometimes throw my favorite Donald Rumsfeld video here about known and unknowns, but I won't run it today. I encourage you to go and look at it. It's kind of entertaining. When we think about risks and controls and knowledge management in the industry, there are 4 different areas of knowledge. There's the knowledge of the threat, and then the actions and the controls in those 4 areas. Things which are known are the incidents which people really are aware of, and they put the controls in place and they're implemented, it's shared, everything's basically taken care of. Then you've got the awareness that things could happen. So it's really a knowledge that there's something unknown, but there's precaution, there's concerns, there's treatments put in place, and they're addressed. Unknown unknowns, it's basically those things which just are going to happen. We really don't know. The big issue within the industry around knowledge management is the unknown knowns. And it's been pointed out to be by many people in the many days of workshop that I've run, that the mining industry is very old, it's very mature, it's very global, it's very big companies, it's been going on for such a long time, that there really is very little that they haven't already done. And there's very little which hasn't already gone wrong somewhere. So it should be known, but why do those things keep on recurring? And part of the reason why those things keep on recurring is because this whole area of unknown knowns is too big. The goal of RISKGATE is to share knowledge across the whole industry so that, say, one company X, gets things right 95% of the time, and people in the workshops tell me it's much closer to 85% of the time. Let's say 95%. But when you've got 6 companies in the room and they all get it right 95% of the time, 85% of the time, hopefully that 15 to 5% which they don't remember is not common. So when you get everyone in the room, you build the body of knowledge that you need to manage the risks much closer to the 100%. And that's a process which we've seen in all the different topics that we've been working on. I'm going to show you the RISKGATE video, which talks about, as an example, fire on mobile plant. And if we look at incidents in fire incidents in Queensland and Western Australia, of all of the incidents in Western Australia and Queensland, you had fire as 30% of incidents in surface mines in WA over that time period of about 10 years. In Queensland, over about 5 years, 19% of the incidents in surface mines are related to fire. If you drill down further in Western Australia, of those fire incidents across that 11-year period, 12% of them involved hydraulic fluid. Almost 80% of those were on mobile plant, and the most prevalent cause was leakage of fluid onto a hot surface. Well, that's something which we should really know about, because we know we've got hot surfaces, we know that there's going to be some kind of a leakage. So what are the controls that should be put in place? This video is an introduction to what RISKGATE is about. So, how does RISKGATE work? Back in 2010, we had 2 workshops with the industry to determine what would be the topic areas and what would be the structure and approach that we used to build the body of knowledge. Jim Joy was essentially the chief investigator leading the program at that point in time. And we determined with the industry that we would focus on 12 topics. Right now, we are sitting at somewhere between 16 and 20. Because when we got into it, we found that some of these areas have quite unique subsets of knowledge. So the whole area of managing ground or strata could not be one topic, because you needed different experts for underground from ground control. And then things like, which are related to this area, like tailings dams or outburst or inrush, became their own topics. Coal burst and bumps is its own topic. Fires was determined by the group under the direction of Professor Cliff, my boss, that it really was two very different areas as well. The whole areas of fires, which is fire on mobile plant or infrastructure, and then the whole area of managing methane gas and spontaneous combustion, which we rolled into a new topic called explosions. So that's pretty much, you know, you get into it and then you realize, hey, we've got to divide this. And the scope of RISKGATE, I used to say to people, RISKGATE was envisaged as sort of a afternoon stroll up Kosciuszko, you know, nice summer sunny day. And what the program really became when we got into it was a solo ascent on K2 in the middle of winter. But we got it done. We follow a process called action research, where we identify with the group what the topic is and what the topic is defined to be initially, and then we start to talk about controls and causes and consequences, actually in the order of causes, consequences, and then controls, to build that knowledge, and then we revise it as we go along. In the initial year, there was also a hell of a lot of revising of the actual structure of what the system was going to look like. We didn't write a single piece of software code for the online system until we'd put wireframes, sort of mock-ups of what the system was going to look like, in front of many of the different workshop topic areas. And they gave us feedback. So essentially we were user testing the system before we even built it. That just happened because of luck. I'd like to say it was brilliant project management that we planned it that way, because it was a great way to do it, but it was kind of just the way we built it. The most critical concept within RISKGATE is the bow tie. And there's really two important things to know about, or three important things to know about a bow tie. The first one is that your initiating event, or you're not in the middle of the bow tie in sort of a classical sense, this is where the control is lost. So the loss of control of the energy is here. In some of the less engineering or less health and safety topics, for example, from a RISKGATE social point of view, which we're starting to conceive at the moment, this might be the point at which you start to lose support of your stakeholders. So it takes a lot of thinking at the beginning to try and figure out how you're going to make the question that you're addressing in RISKGATE fit the bow tie model. And I'm sure there's going to be some issues in the whole area of mining which simply don't fit the bow tie model. But right now we've been able to shoehorn most things into it. On this side over here you have the causes, and on this side the consequences, and then there are two key things you have to know. There's no straight line from here to here. A bow tie simply does not work that way. A bow tie works from here to here, and then separately a bow tie works from here to here. But there's no straight line between the two, because there's many, many options that in many ways it could go. The other thing is there's two different types of controls, and we always have lots of conversation around this with each of the topic groups as we get into it. There's the mitigating controls. Stop. Go away. There's the mitigating controls, and these are the things you put in place to prevent the event from happening. On this side, there's a really trigger-happy mouse. On this side, there's the, sorry, I got that wrong. These are the preventative controls. You should have jumped on me, David, or Jill. These are the preventative controls which you put in place to prevent the event from happening. These are the mitigating controls which you, and this is all on video. These are the mitigating controls which you put in place to mitigate the consequence or reduce the consequence. See, even I get confused after doing this for 2.5 years. The mitigating controls are best explained as a parachute or a seat belt. The other thing which was confusing with many of our topic groups, there's no timeline from left to right. These mitigating controls are not things you put in place after the event has happened to mitigate the consequence. They're things you put in place as you plan your activities, your operations, and it's like a seatbelt. You put your seatbelt on before you start driving, but it's never going to prevent the accident. It's simply, hopefully, going to minimize the consequences. When we get into the workshops, you can see there's a huge amount of information that is generated, and we go through all of this then and sort that body of knowledge into those different areas of causes, controls, and consequences in a very iterative fashion. Sometimes the workshop members do homework to make it go a bit quicker, but I'd say that's probably 5% of the time. We've built a massive amount of knowledge around the 11 topics which are completed. Over 16,000 entries now within the system, and you can see how these are divided up across the different topic areas. The goal is to have that knowledge accessible 24/7 and with the easy to use design. It's always available as long as you've got internet. And as one of the workshop members explained to me, it's taking all that knowledge from all those grey-haired, bald people in the industry and putting it into the young people who are coming in. It's making it available to them. And so there's a paper which someone from CSRM shared with me late last year about fly in, fly out, which had a somewhat cynical comment that the problem which is going on in my operation really is only a problem until I leave. When I'm gone, I don't have to worry about it. Well, hopefully what RISKGATE does is make that knowledge available, so even if that people leaves on a 1 week on, 1 week off cycle, the knowledge is still there to be able to manage the problem. I'll just run through what the video said with a different context. Incidents in the Queensland mines is an analysis which Shirley did for me a couple of weeks ago for a collision avoidance topic I had to, conference I had to talk at. And when you add these different areas of collisions, whether it's unplanned movement of the vehicle or mobile plant, you add them all together, and this is what was surprising because Lionel Smith from the department said to me, it's basically a straight line over the last 10 years. So I went in and pulled the department data from the, Shirley went in and pulled the department data from the annual reports, and yeah, of course he knew what he was talking about, but I was pretty amazed that we were going to get essentially this flat line that over the last 10 years in Queensland, approximately 40% of all high potential incidents every year are related to collisions. So loss of control of the vehicle, two vehicles coming together, unplanned movement of the vehicle, those kinds of things. In RISKGATE, the collisions topic was divided up into two areas of two initiating events. Loss of control of the mobile equipment, which is more or less all in the hands of the operator. And then this one was, I still don't know if we've got quite the right language, but this is what the group agreed on. The unexpected positioning of a pedestrian in proximity to the mobile equipment. So dumb human walks in front of, haul truck doesn't see them, and bingo. Or yesterday I was looking with Shirley and my other research assistant at some of the American fatality information. There were two people who got stomped on by a moving drag line. I mean, that's quite amazing to me, because I don't think drag lines move that quickly, but maybe they do. I've never seen a moving drag line, but suddenly they weren't there, and then they realised that the drag line stomped on them. That would be unexpected positioning of a pedestrian in proximity to mobile equipment. When we go through the RISKGATE process, we really spend a lot of time trying to define what the topic actually talks about. So it relates to the unwanted or unexpected interaction between people, mobile equipment, and fixed plant that results in these things. It also relates to the uncontrolled movement of the mobile plant. So, you know, the brakes haven't worked or something happens and just a single vehicle moves in a way it shouldn't move. It goes over the edge of the berm or something. So it's not just collisions between two things. Collisions is an easy way to describe the topic. Putting up here unexpected interaction of people, mobile and field equipment, it's just too many words. So this is how we define collisions. Then we define what all those vehicles are. We talk about what fixed plant is. We talk about the different kinds of interactions, what's covered, and then the other important thing is we talk about what's not addressed. And in the collisions one, it's whatever happens with those vehicles off the mine site, because RISKGATE is limited to what happens on the mine site. That's how the industry wants it to be. Then you click on, you get to the initiating event, and when you click on the causes, you get the preventative controls. And when you click on these, you get the detail within those preventive controls. And this is really the operational information that you can use to implement the controls for that particular cause of the particular hazard. At the end of the day, you can print up the checklist and then take that with you. So, simple to use, very intuitive, not too many steps. Pick your initiating event. Pick the cause, which is important, pick the controls, you get the information. And then if you want to get the whole lot of information, you go through, you click on the checklist, and you basically get the checklist. Why has RISKGATE been a success? It's really the commitment of all of the ACUP member companies that have donated the time of over 100 different industry experts. You can see Anglo's almost 100 days of manpower over the last 2 years. I have to say we're lucky. We did this at a time when the industry had people and were willing to make people available. It's much more challenging right now in a climate where the industry is downsizing. We're still running workshops this year and we're still getting support, but it takes a lot more baby kissing to make that happen, in the words of Professor Cliff. Okay, you can look at it another way and you can see how many days of time have been committed per topic. Strata stands out, which is the underground strata topic. It stands out not because these people are particularly dumb and take a long time to do things, but really they were the guinea pigs at the very beginning who helped us build both the online system and the whole workshop, structured workshop process. So yeah, I think it was a little frustrating for them as we figured out what we were doing. And also it's a really complicated topic. The one which is next in terms of the number of manpowers is fires, which is another very complicated topic. When you get down to explosives underground or slips, trips, falls, that's not because these guys are totally brilliant, which they are, or because these are very simple topics. It's because both of these topics, the actual structure of how we did it and a lot of the knowledge was already built in a similar topic. So explosives open cut was finished, and then we modified it to do the explosives underground topic. Slips, trips, and falls, we'd figured out how we were going to do manual tasks, and then a lot of that thinking was applied to slips, trips, falls. These are also fairly discrete, well-defined areas compared to something like fires or isolation, which are just huge areas. Another reason why the program's successful is we're always recruiting, always asking for people to nominate their colleagues, volunteer someone they know who would have knowledge to be on the project. This year is the Series 3. We're doing outburst, coalburst bumps, inrush, tailings dams, interface, which is all really should be called human-machine interface. It's about displays and controls, and then occupational hygiene, which is hazardous chemicals, dust, fumes, noise. Those things in the environment where you have possibly exposure limits and dosages, and you can define quite clearly the area around hygiene and health. Our much bigger challenge is going to be to work out what occupational health means. And we'll be scoping that with the goal to have a series of workshops around occupational health in 2014. What are the opportunities? RISKGATE knowledge is being used by the industry already to do risk assessments. This knowledge is there. It's like bringing the whole industry into the room when the individual is scoping a risk assessment on site. It's being used to do incident investigations, audits of practices, controls which are already in place, and then it's been found to be a fabulous tool for training, bringing new people who are coming in and giving them access to the system so they can see what's already all there. Not just the knowledge. Anglo-American are using it to really train people in how bow ties work, because it's such an intuitive demonstration of what the bow tie analysis method is about. What is RISKGATE? There's lots of people who want to say RISKGATE is simply that online system. For me, RISKGATE is three things. It's that online system. It's also the knowledge which is underneath that online system. So it's all that accumulated expertise from the different communities of practice we had in the different topics. And then it's the process for me of developing a body of knowledge around a particular topic area. So it's the workshop structure, it's the way we organize that. We know how to do it now. And we think that that process has utility in many other areas. Which brings me back to this circle and an invitation to those of you who are in other areas of SMI to think about how RISKGATE or the RISKGATE process could be applied to building a body of knowledge with different communities of practice from the industries that you, or parts of the industry that you work in. We're already in conversation, as David alluded to, with CSRM about building a RISKGATE social topic. And we will be putting in a ACARP pre-proposal or whatever that first stage proposal is called in May on that topic. We already have at least one industry partner who's very committed to it, and we'll probably get a couple. I think the system could work quite well around water. I think it could work quite well around environment. There's interest from CSG to also look at the social area. So there's many opportunities, and I'm here. I'm always up on level 6. Way too many hours. Beyond the Australian coal mine, again, it's a way to build this knowledge. And where could we take it? Well, there's a lot of coal dug in other parts of the world. So it's logical that one could apply this body of knowledge into other parts of the world. And we're already in conversation with 2 different universities in the US about what could we do with RISKGATE in their coal industry. There's metal mining in Australia, and there's probably Lionel Smith from the Queensland Department would say it's actually almost 100% transferable. I'm a little less gung-ho. I think it's totally transferable, but it needs to go through that step of putting it in a forum with a lot of metal mining people and just making sure the language is right, and the missing controls that are needed in their particular mining methods or environments are added in and the coal ones are taken out. But it's not going to be like building the whole thing from scratch. I think there's an opportunity to take RISKGATE into a lot of other high-risk industries, different parts of the energy chain, transportation, construction. And hey, if I ever have the time, I'd love to build a RISKGATE bow tie around managing student learning outcomes in undergraduate education. I think that would be a lot of fun, but that's a huge leap from what I'm paid to do here. If we look at coal mining across the world, and this is an analysis which was undertaken by 4 of my summer undergraduate research students this year, some of you who shared desks almost, or shared walls as they worked up on level 6. They looked at categorizing the fatalities across 5 different countries, including Australia, according to these different areas of hazard. And this is percent of fatalities. So the percent of the total fatalities. With India, it's not total fatalities because there's no body count in India. It's an incident count. So these are the percent of incidents in India. So don't think that Australia, in terms of actual number of fatalities, is basically on a par with the US, because this is a percent graph. And you can see that many of these hazards where we've built a body of knowledge are areas where people are dying in other parts of the world in their coal industries. And I would like to think that maybe the RISKGATE knowledge could be applicable in those areas. Of course, in some of these, like India or China, the English would need to be translated into language which would work. And I don't know if IM4DC or some other government aid agency would be interested in that. Maybe have to be translated for South Africans as well, but that's a different question. When you look at the energy chain and you look at the different industries that are associated with coal mining, there's the suppliers, OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, or the engineering workshops which work on equipment or infrastructure for the mines, and construction, all of which are high risk. There's transportation, railway and road and shipping. There's the port facilities, and then there's the power chains upstream from where that coal is dug out. All of these are high risk environments. And we've had a couple of very early conversations with port facilities about whether they would be interested in using the RISKGATE approach to manage the risks in their environments. We did a quick look at the different initiating events, and I can tell you this was not done by people who were in each of these industries, but it was done by those of us upstairs on level 6, trying to think through where the knowledge in the different initiating events we developed for the different topics could be applied across these other industries. Of course, it would then have to be fine-tuned and expanded. But you can see that there's an opportunity here to take this knowledge, built and paid for by the coal industry, and extend it out into the energy chain, at least around coal. What does it take to build a body of knowledge? This is the actual number of workshop days across the different topics. And you can see in the first year, we were up around 14 to 16 days of actual workshop per topic. That was a lot of food, which Barbara ordered, and a lot of organization to get people in here at the right time. That was significantly reduced in the second series of topics, partly because we knew what we were doing, partly because the system was built. And yeah, so you can build a body of knowledge, probably, I would say, if you've got the right number of people in the workshops, with somewhere between 8 and 10, 12 days of workshop. We like to do it in 8 days of workshop with basically 4 workshops, so 4 two-day workshops, and then we're done. In the first year we did actually get quite a lot of pushback from fairly senior industry people in ACARP about workshop fatigue and why was it taking so much. And we had good answers for that, but it also caused us to respond by really streamlining the way we managed the whole process. The other thing that it takes to build a body of knowledge is a lot of really good, engaged people. ACARP have given this project phenomenal support. 9 of Australia's coal mining companies have generously provided over 100 different experts. And then we've had over 20 experts from other stakeholders in the industry, so regulators and suppliers primarily. The group from the beginning had oversight on the part of Jim Joy and others just on how we built it. This was the ones I reported to every month, and we discussed and got input and shaped the program. Each topic has topic leaders, and we had people from within MISC, other institutions. And then there's the RISKGATE team, the group of people around me who really do all the work. And I appreciate and acknowledge each one of those people.